Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the brand new melee weapon, the Tug and Suck. This became available in the recent Galleon of Ghouls event, and unlike the previous event's weapon, this one actually seems quite promising. But before we start, let's go over the first and top commenter board. So our first commenter of the last video was BloodRaven6413. The top commenter of the last video was Joel Orocho2594. And we have our recent channel supporters here of Nice Bear, Colonel Suro 6, and Alfofo. Thank you so much for your support. Unique and interesting things about the Tak Lug is its trait here. This says heavy attacks hit in a wide area inflicting blast status, but there's a little bit more intricacies to this. The heavy attack throws a shield that travels 15 meters and explodes 3 different times for blast damage. The range and explosion AoE are affected by melee range mods, and you can move the shield left and right during the heavy attack animation by moving your reticle, which will allow those 3 blast explosions to kind of be moved around a bit. Alright, let's go over the mods. Voltaic Strike for the Electric 6060. We use this to activate our Arcane of Melee Influence. Galvanized Steel for crit chance and crit damage. Galvanized Elementalist for increased status damage and status chance. This will hugely affect the damage we get from our Blast, Electric, and Slash procs, and if you notice, on the status sheet here to the left, our slash weighting is actually really good on this weapon. So even though, we're picking Galvanized Elementalist pretty much because of the unique trait here that produces that blast, it's still also extremely valuable just for our heavy slash weighting that we have here as well. So a really good mod for this slot for this particular weapon. In the next slot, we're going to be going for Gladiator Might for crit chance and crit damage. Condition Overload for flat damage. Primed Reach is next for +3 range. This increases our melee range in general, which is nice, but more importantly, it increases that range of the blast explosions on heavy attacks. Blood Rush for crit chance. Weeping Wounds for status chance. In the stance slot, I'll be using Final Harbinger. Final Harbinger's forward light combo is more damage than 11th Storm's forward light, and its neutral light is even more damage and has 2 force slash procs compared to 11th Storm's 1. So me personally, I do like that Final Harbinger stance rather than the 11th Storm. In the Tennokai slot, originally I had thought Opportunity's Reach for even more range on the Tennokais, but the problem is your free Tennokais happen so infrequently with this that you can't benefit from your unique trait as much. You just get a lot more value with Disciple's Merit here instead. That just gives you that free Tennokai after every 4 hits. So we're gonna just stay with the max DPS Tennokai mod of Disciple's Merit. And in the Arcane slot, of course, we're gonna be using Melee Influence here. This is how you build out the new melee weapon, the Tak Lug. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, consider leaving a like and subscribing for future content. Now I have a 5-minute gameplay portion showcasing the weapon, and when that's done, I'll give the final score and ranking of the weapon. Alright, I'll see you guys after the gameplay. Alright, we're going to start the 5-minute gameplay portion here. We're doing Steel Path Lewis Circulus. This is also the same map that we do our 10-minute tests on. I won't be using any abilities or any externals other than a pet to prime for me, just because you kind of have to prime for Condition Overload to work. So I just use a pet to always prime the same way in every video, so that way melee weapons are kind of comparable to each other. You can watch one video and see how one did compared to another. I really like this weapon actually, compared to, well, especially compared to the last Galleon of Ghouls weapon. I did not like the Tomcat at all. This one though is actually a net positive, whereas the Tomcat, I feel like, the Tomcat felt like it was a net negative unless you were using some very specific Warframes. And even then it was like, all right, you're maybe eking out a little bit of a positive, like not even a lot of positives. Whereas this, you know, you get free blast basically. You don't have to do too much to get that free blast. Well, you don't really have to do anything to get that free blast, but to bank on it more than you normally would, you have to like add some range on a weapon that already has 2.5 range, which normally you wouldn't do. You know, normally you wouldn't put prime breach on a weapon with default 2.5 range, but because it affects the blast on here, it's worth it. It does mean that the build doesn't have an attack speed mod, which, you know, kind of sucks a little. Attack speed, though, unfortunately, does not beat out anything that we currently have on the build. So that's why we don't have an attack speed mod on it. But if you were lucky enough to get a Riven and you were able to compress some mods and stats, and your Riven happened to have attack speed, I'd be happy about that. You can get your attack speed that way. I also did a lot of testing with Melee Duplicate. I think Melee Duplicate is also a viable setup for this weapon. It does change the build a bit though, so it's not just as simple as removing Influence and adding Duplicate. But I think Duplicate is a viable change over Influence, specifically for level cap content. I don't think it would beat Influence though on anything other than level cap. Level cap though it might, because you would get basically double slash procs, which could be quite nice. Statuses are nice on level cap, but in general, no. I think in general you go with the melee Influence build. Melee Influence also cares a little bit less about attack speed, so like it's not as detrimental that we didn't go for an attack speed mod, because dudes are getting hit all around me anyway and are kind of dying in one hit regardless. You know, it says the shield throws out 15 meters, but I don't know. I feel like it's half of that, honestly. It feels like most of the time. When I was doing my testing yesterday evening and this morning, man, that shield throw kind of feels like maybe 8 meters. Like, I don't even... Did it even hit that guy? I don't know. Maybe my perception of range is not great. The wiki says 15, but it feels more like 8. Where's this guy at? All right, so we're almost at 5 minutes here. We'll get some Thraxes in here. Five seconds for Thraxes. Thrax is down. Try to not miss every Rat Black hit. There we go. And that's it. I think that's a good showcase there. What are we getting? We got 606 kills in 5 minutes, which is really good actually. That's probably better than a lot of my runs I did today. So, all right. And the gameplay here, and then we'll have Salt back in the Orbiter. All right, welcome back, guys. So let's go over how the Tak Lug did for its 10-minute scores. Now, as we said in the past, melees are harder to rank than ranged, because almost all melees, even the ones that are just slightly above average, will get 1,100 kills and over in 10 minutes. And at about that same point, you'll actually start having more issues with the enemy spawns rather than the weapon itself. And so it becomes harder to actually, rank the weapons comparatively, because it's more about the crappy enemy spawns at that point. So we just simply give the melees a pass or a fail. Were they able to hit that 1,100 kills and over in 10 minutes, or were they not? And in the case of the Tak Lug, it did easily hit this amount. And to give it an overall ranking, we need to consider a few things. It gets free blast with its unique trait, which is huge. Now we do need to deviate a bit from our standard max DPS build to accommodate this unique trait, meaning we lose our attack speed mod that we would normally have on a normal melee build. But I think the gain of free blast is very worth it in this case. So I'm going to rank this weapon as A tier. It's better than average, which average would be B tier, but it's not as good as the strongest melee weapons in the game, you know, some of like the Incarnate melees and things, which would be S tier. So I think A is fair. So that's my take on it. Tell me what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.